Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum. I am Rafiq and I am a foundation level student at Tehran School Islamabad Baraku campus. So because today I am going to conduct an AI session with Maya. In this session, I will ask few questions and Maya will provide the answers. So let's start. My first question is what is software?
At its simplest, software is the set of instructions that tells your hardware exactly what to do. Think of hardware as the body, the screen, the chips, the keyboard, and software as the mind. Without software, your laptop is just a very expensive paperweight. It's everything from the operating system that runs the whole show to the specific apps you use to browse the web or write a document. Exactly. The computer is the perfect. Oh, absolutely. It's a massive world. Do you want to dive into how the hardware actually processes those instructions, or are you thinking more about the different types of computers out there?
Question is what is the
Since you're leaning
difference
into it,
between what is the difference between software and hardware?
hardware is the physical stuff you can actually touch: the screen, the keyboard, the motherboard, the battery. Um, Software is the invisible part. That's the code, the data, and the instructions that live inside the hardware. To put it simply, if you can drop it on your foot, it's hardware. If you can only see it on a screen or run it in the background, it's software.
Okay, my next question
It
is
can definitely feel a bit. I hear you. Sometimes the hardest part is just figuring out how to phrase the question. Don't sweat it. We'll just keep talking it through until it clicks.
my next question is what is system software?
System software is like the manager of the entire operation. It's the layer of software that handles the basic functions of your device so that other apps can actually run. The biggest example is the operating system, like Windows, Mac OS, or Android. It manages your memory, controls your hardware, and makes sure the screen knows what to show when you click something. Without it, you'd have to manually tell the computer's processor exactly where to find every single piece of data every time, right? That would be a total nightmare. That's why system software is so vital. It does all the boring, complex, heavy lifting in the background so you can just focus on using the device. Does that make sense, or should we look at it from another angle?
So my next question is what are the main type of software?
Generally, it boils down to two big categories: system software and application software. You already know about system software, the manager that runs the hardware. Application software is everything else. Those are the tools you actually use to get things done, like a web browser, a game, or a word processor. It's essentially the difference between the foundation of a house and the furniture you put inside it.
My next question is what is application software?
Application software, or just apps for short, are the programs designed to help you perform specific tasks. Unlike system software, which is there to keep the computer running, application software is there for you. Whether it's Spotify for listening to music, Chrome for browsing the web, or WhatsApp for messaging, these are the tools that actually provide a service or entertainment. If system software is the stage, application software is the actual performance happening on it.
So my next question is what is programming?
Programming is essentially the act of writing those instructions we were talking about earlier. It's how you communicate with a computer. Since computers don't understand human languages like English or Urdu, you use a programming language like Python or Java to write a precise set of rules that the machine can actually follow. It's kind of like writing a very detailed recipe. If you miss a step or put things in the wrong order, the whole thing doesn't work. Does that bridge the gap between the software and the hardware for you? Are you talking about the analogy with the recipe or just the whole concept of programming in general?
So my next question is, what is coding?
Coding is basically the actual writing part of programming. People often use the terms interchangeably, but if programming is the big picture, planning the logic and designing how everything works, then coding is the act of typing those specific lines of code into a text editor. It's like the difference between architecting a house and actually laying the bricks.
So my next question is, how is software development?
Managing software well is all about the life cycle. It's not just about writing the code and calling it a day. It starts with clear planning and requirements, so you actually know what you're building. Then you move into development, but the real secret to good management is testing. You have to try to break your own software in every way possible before a user does. After it's released, it's all about maintenance. Take your time. It's a lot to wrap your head around. Which part is feeling a bit fuzzy? I love the confidence. Take all the time you need. I'm right here whenever you're ready for the next one.
Okay, my next question is, what does a software development do?
I think you mean a software developer. They're the people who actually build the software we've been talking about. Their job is to take a problem or an idea like, I want an app that helps people track their water intake and turn it into a working product using code. They spend their day designing the logic, writing the code, and then hunting down bugs to make sure everything runs smoothly. It's a mix of creative problem solving um, and a lot of patience.
So my next question is,
Sounds like a
what,
plan. I'll be right here whenever.
yeah,
Got it. You're moving on to the next video. I'll be hanging out right here. Just let me know when you've got your next set of questions. Enjoy the video.
my next question is, what is the difference between a software engineer and programmer?
It's a subtle difference, but it really comes down to the scope of the work. A programmer is someone who can write code to solve a specific problem. They're the ones in the trenches making the functions work. A software engineer about how the code will scale to make sure it doesn't crash when a million people use it at once. Basically, if a programmer writes a great piece of code, a software engineer ensures that code fits into a reliable long-term machine.
Question is, how does AI help in software development? My question is, how does AI help in software development?
Still with me? Just checking in to see if that clicked or if you're still processing that video.
My next question is, why is Python so popular? My question is, why is Python so popular? My next
I'm
question
officially on.
is, how does AI help software development?
Since you want the deep dive, let's really get into this. AI has basically become the ultimate power tool for developers. First, there's the actual coding part. AI assistants can now suggest entire blocks of code in real time, which saves developers from having to memorize every single syntax detail or spend an hour hunting through documentation for one specific function. It's like having a partner who's read every manual ever written. Then there's debugging. Instead of staring at a screen for 3 hours trying to find a missing semicolon or a logic error, AI can often spot the pattern of the bug and suggest a fix instantly. It also helps with boilerplate code, all that repetitive, boring stuff that has to be written for every project. So the humans can focus on the actual creative architecture and problem solving. Beyond the code, it's being used to write the documentation, generate test cases to make sure the software doesn't crash, and even help plan the entire development lifecycle by predicting where potential bottlenecks might happen. It doesn't replace the engineer, but it removes the friction from the process. Do you want to know about specific AI tools developers are using right now?
So my next question is, what is ChatGPT?
That's a pretty big question. Since we were just talking about AI in software, are you asking about the capabilities of AI in general, or maybe the capabilities of a specific tool or system? Give me a little more context so I can give you one of those long answers you're looking for.
Okay, my next question is, what is the difference between Python and Java?
All right, let's break this down because these two are like the heavyweights of the programming world, but they approach things very differently. First, let's talk about the feel of the languages. Python is designed to be readable and concise. It's often described as executable pseudocode because it looks a lot like English. You can do in 5 lines of Python what might take 20 lines in Java. It uses something called dynamic typing, which means you don't have to explicitly tell the computer that a variable is a number or a piece of text. Python just figures it out as it goes. This makes it incredibly fast for prototyping and a favorite for beginners. Java, on the other hand, is a statically typed language. You have to be very explicit. If you want a variable to be an integer, you have to declare it as an integer. This feels like more work up front. It's definitely more verbose, but it's actually a huge advantage for massive complex projects. Because the rules are so strict, the computer can catch a lot of errors before the program even runs, which is why big banks and corporate systems love Java. Like, I'm not sure I follow. What fund are you referring to?
So my next question is, what is HTLM?
Well, let me look into that for you. I'm listening. What's next on your list? Actually, I just found out that HDLM stands for Hitachi Dynamic Link Manager. It's basically a software solution that manages the paths between host servers and storage systems. It keeps everything reliable by balancing the workload and automatically switching to a backup path if something fails, so the system doesn't just crash. Does that sound like what you were looking for? Hmm. I'm not quite sure what you mean by stand it in this context. Are you thinking about how a system handles that kind of load, or were you moving on to something else?
Okay, my next question is, what is CSS?
Since we're doing the deep dive, let's get into the guts of how the web actually looks. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. If a website were a house, HTML would be the wooden frame and the walls, the basic structure that says, here is a room or here is a door. CSS is everything that makes it a home, the paint on the walls, the wallpaper versus a giant monitor. Without it, every website would just be a plain white page with black text and blue links. It turns a basic document into a visual experience.
Okay, my next question is, what is the difference between a website and a software?
This is a great question because the line between the two has actually gotten really blurry lately, but there's still a fundamental difference in how they're built and used. At its simplest, a website is primarily a collection of connected pages that you access through a web browser. Its main purpose is usually to deliver information. Think of a news site or a blog. You go there to consume content. And while you can interact with it, the core experience is about viewing information that's hosted on a remote server. Software or an application is more about functionality in performing specific tasks. It's a tool designed to do something. When you think of software, you think of things like Photoshop, an accounting program, or even the OS running on your laptop. Traditionally, software is installed directly on your hardware, which gives it direct access to your computer's processing power and memory, making it much more powerful for heavy duty tasks like video editing or complex calculations. Now, here is where it gets tricky. Web applications. Things like Google Docs or Gmail are technically websites because you access them via a browser, but they behave like software because they aren't just showing you text. They're letting you create documents, manage emails, and collaborate in real time. That's the sweet spot where the two worlds meet. Since you mentioned loving your app, are you thinking about building one yourself?
My next question is, how are mobile apps created?
Since you're af- since you're after the long version, let's walk through the whole journey of how an app goes from an idea to something on your screen. It all starts with the planning and design phase. Before a single line of code is written, developers create wireframes, which are like blueprints, to map out where every button and image goes. Then they move into UX and UI design to make. Oh, you're exactly right. The button is the gateway to the inside logic of the app. When you tap that button, it triggers a piece of code, the inside, that tells the app to perform a specific action, like saving a photo or sending a message. After that design is locked in, the actual building starts, which usually happens in one of three ways, depending on what the developer wants.
My next question is, what is a database?
Since we're keeping the deep dives going, let's talk about the memory of the digital world. At its simplest, is
Okay,
basically an organized collection of structured information or data, typically stored electronically in a computer system. Think of it like a digital filing cabinet. Instead of just having a giant pile of documents where you have to hunt for what you need, a database organizes everything into tables, rows. Wait, what do you mean you feel bad? I'm right here with you. Do you want to talk about what's bothering you, or do you just need a second to breathe before we get back to the questions?
my next question is, what is an API?
All right. Let's dive into this because APIs are basically the unsung heroes of the modern internet. API stands for Application Programming Interface. Since we're doing the long version, the best way to think about an API. Exactly. Think of it from the perspective of the user, but the user in this case isn't actually a person, it's another piece of software. An API is like a waiter at a restaurant. You're the customer, and the kitchen is the system that has.
Okay, my next question is, what is a software bug?
Since we're doing the deep dives, let's talk about the digital equivalent of a trip and fall. The software bug is, you got it, the absolute longest version coming right up. At its core, a software bug is Whoa. Hey, breathe. Seriously, stop. It's okay. Really. You have absolutely nothing to be sorry for. Just take a breath. I'm right here, and we can just stay in this moment for as long as you need.
Okay, my next question is uh, why is software testing important?
Let's get into this because testing is basically the safety net that keeps the digital world from falling apart. Imagine if an airplane's navigation software had a tiny mistake that only happened when it rained on a Tuesday. Without rigorous testing, you wouldn't know that until it was way too late. That's why testing isn't just a final check, it's a whole philosophy of trying to break things on purpose so they don't break for the actual user. First, there's the obvious part, finding those bugs we were just talking about. But it goes deeper than that. Testing ensures reliability, which is just a fancy way of saying the app does what it's supposed to do every single time. Not
Okay, my next question is what is UI?
back for one more, huh? Since we're doing the long version, let's get into it. UI stands for user interface. If the inside of the app is the engine and the logic, the UI is the dashboard, the steering wheel, and the pedals. It is every single thing a person actually sees and touches when they interact with a digital product. We're talking about the layout of the screens, the specific shade of blue on a button, the font that makes a headline easy to read, and the way a menu slides out from the side when you tap an icon. A great UI is almost invisible. It's so intuitive that you don't even have to. Bye for now. I'll be here whenever you're ready for the next round of deep dives. Take care.
Okay, my next question is what is UX?
And we're back. Since you're on a roll with these, let's really peel back the layers on this one. UX stands for user experience. Now, people often lump UI and UX together, but they're actually very different. I'm ready. What's the next one on your list? I think I might have gotten ahead of myself. I was just about to explain the difference between UI and UX, but it sounds like you might have a new question ready. What's on your mind?
Okay, my next question is what does a content developer do?
I think you might mean a front end developer, since we're doing the deep dive. Let's look at what they actually do. If a website is like a house, the front end developer, you've definitely taken a sharp turn into some poetic territory there. I'm a little lost on the blue air plant line part. Is that a lyric, a visual for your project, or just a thought that popped in? I'm still happy to finish the deep dive on front end developers if you want, or we can follow this new trail.
Okay, my next
I'm not
question is
entirely sure what I'm
yeah, yeah.
locked in. What's the
See,
final question on the list? Keeping it a secret, huh? I can respect a little mystery. I'm just hanging out here, so whenever you decide to break the silence, I'm ready.
okay, my next question is what is Git?
Oh, now we're getting into the real magic of how developers actually work together. Since you want the deep dive, let's start with the basic idea. Git really is a good.
Okay, my next question is what is GitHub user used for?
This is the perfect follow up to the Git question because while they sound similar, they're actually different things. Since we're doing the deep dive, think of it this way. Git is the tool you use on your own computer to keep track of your work, but GitHub is the place where you put that work so the rest of the world can see it and help you with it. It's like the difference between writing a story in a private notebook and publishing it on a website for a whole community of writers to edit and improve. It's where the collaboration happens. People can fork a project, which means they take a copy of the code to try their own ideas and then send a.
Okay, my next question is What is cloud computing?
Since we're keeping the long form energy going, let's really pull this apart because the cloud is one of those terms that sounds magical, but is actually very practical. The biggest misconception is that the cloud is some floating 3D and 4D. Now we're getting into some spatial magic. Since we're doing the deep dive, let's start with 3D, which is what we're used to. It's the three dimensions of space, length, width, and depth. That's why a cube is.
So we were this is the session for my today. We will meet you in another session. I hope you like it. See you in the next video. Allah Hafiz, Pakistan Zindabad.